video, I'm going to take a close look at the software version of TB-303 by Roland Cloud. TB-303 was an iconic bass machine that was released in 1981 by Roland, and it played a significant role in the development of electronic music genres as well as cultural movements. TB-303 is known for its squelching, hypnotic sound known as the sound of acid. Its legacy continues today, and it is now available as a software instrument by Roland Cloud, which is what we're going to take a look in this video. So I'll create an acid bassline using TB-303 first, and also add drums using TR-606 and TR-808, also by Roland Cloud. Let's get started. So I've loaded TB-303 in Logic, and as you can see, this is a very careful replica of the original hardware. I can start the sequencer by pressing the space key on my keyboard. And as you can hear, it will be automatically synced to the project tempo. Or I can hit this run or stop button to run the sequencer independently. It comes with loads of pattern and patch presets. Let's hear some of them. So you can enjoy a variety of TB-303 sounds from these presets, and they can be great starting points. These knobs up here are very important as they shape the characteristics of the sound, and also if I open the panel, I will have access to additional controls including the effects and the drive. But we will come back to these later in more detail. Let's first take a look at the sequencer. So in order to program a bass line, I need to click this edit button, and it will open up the sequencer at the bottom. You can create up to 8 variations for a pattern, and you can select which variation to play with these buttons. To select which variation to edit, you need to press the buttons down here, not the ones at the top, but I recommend activating this current button so you will always be editing the variation that is currently being played. Each variation contains 16 steps, but the length can be adjusted by setting the last step. I have a MIDI keyboard connected, and as long as this keyboard button is activated, I can play the sound. So when this is off, I cannot play the sound, but instead I can use my MIDI keyboard to send MIDI messages to quickly trigger one of these variations. Now let's also take a look at this randomized section because it's really cool. This reflects the original hardware's low voltage failure mode, which is a state when the batteries were taken out from the machine. TB-303 would generate a completely randomized pattern. In the software version, all we have to do is click generate, and it will keep randomizing the pattern. Also, what's great about this is that we can select which parameter to randomize. So for example, if I wanted to maintain the current pattern's pitch, I can deselect pitch and press generate to randomize the other parameters, so accent, slide, and gate. And we can right-click to undo the change. Randomize will be great if you need inspiration or want to quickly make a variation of your pattern. Modify will make smaller but also randomized modifications, and we can right-click to undo as well. Another useful setting is the scale setting. If I click it, it will allow me to specify which notes to be used in the sequence. So, for example, if I limit this to E and F, put the pitch back on, hit generate, and you can see that the new pattern only contains E1 and F1. Now let's clear this preset because I want to program a bass line from scratch. So I'm just going to select an empty preset. And in order to turn on a step, all I have to do is click here or click the key that I want to input on the keyboard. This orange frame indicates the current step that's being edited, and I can use the arrow keys on my keyboard to move it around. I'm just going to input E2 for all of them. And once a note is in, I can scroll my mouse up and down very slowly to change the pitch by a semitone or change the octave using these buttons. I can go up to 3 octaves up and 2 octaves down, which is a quite big range. I'm going to put this back to E2 and let's start changing the octaves. I can also add accent. You can immediately hear the emphasis. And slide, which creates like a legato pitch bend type of effect. If I wanted to, I can also transpose the whole pattern by a semitone, or rotate the steps to the left or to the right. So this is how easily and quickly you can add movements to your bassline within TB-303. Now I'm going to spend some time and try to come up with something that I like. So here's where I am now, and I want to use this as the first pattern and create more variations. But before we proceed, let's adjust some of the parameters to start shaping the sound. I'm going to first switch from sawtooth to square wave, detune it a little bit, and play with the filter parameters. Increase the accent. And moving on to the panel section, VCF trim is really important because it can drastically change the sound, adjusting the frequency range of the cutoff frequency knob. Condition is more subtle. It simulates the tonal changes of TB-303 of different age. On the right-hand side, we have access to multiple effects and drive types. Starting with the effects, we have delay, pan delay, but we need to first increase the level. So delay, pan delay, chorus 1, chorus 2, flanger, and delay plus chorus. I like chorus 2, so let's select that. Moving on to the drive, we need to first increase the depth to hear it. We have overdrive, distortion, metal, fuzz, drive, and compressor. I'm going to set it to overdrive. So as you can hear, the controls in the panel section can really enhance the sound. Also, I forgot to mention that this tone control is really important. I like to keep it all the way to the left or on the left-hand side because I can hear more of the low frequencies. Now let's move on and start making variations of the bass line. First, I'm going to come to variation 1, right-click, select copy, go to variation 2, right-click again, select paste, and make sure to hit the current button. And now I can edit variation 2, and this way I can keep developing the first variation without losing the original version. So I spent some time and made 3 variations. Here's variation 1. Variation 2. Three, mixed in a note D. And now I want to move them to Logic as MIDI. It's really easy to do that using Roland Cloud. I'm going to come to Option, make sure that drag and drop pattern as MIDI is selected. And now I can drag and drop the pattern I want to copy directly into Logic. Import tempo information, I'm going to click No. And here's 2 important things I have to do before I start playing the MIDI region. 1, I have to turn off position lock to DAW because I don't want the sequencer within TB-303 to play at the same time. And 2, I have to turn on the keyboard button. And now I can play this MIDI region without triggering the TB-303 sequencer. Let's keep going and copy pattern 2 and pattern 3. Taking a look at the MIDI notes, You can see that the accented notes have the strongest velocity in red and the non-accented notes are green. Let's close TB-303 for now and work in Logic. Now the first thing I want to do is to create some send effects to enhance the sound of TB-303 because it still sounds a little bit flat. On the channel strip, I'm going to choose bus 1 and let's load Chroma Verve. I'm going to select something short. So I'm going to go to Rooms, Amp Room, and let's have a listen. Sounds much better. Okay, and let's title this Chroma Verve. And let's make another one. I'm going to choose bus 2 this time and select stereo delay. And you can see that the left and the right channels have different delay rate. Let's just go with the default settings. So reverb and delay can really enhance the sound of TB-303. And even though there's delay within TB-303 available, since we can only use one effect at a time, it might be better to set it up outside of TB-303. So we've got the foundation for the bass line. Now let's take a little break from TB-303 and move on to adding some drums. I've loaded TR-606, also by Roland Cloud, and this is a drum machine that TB-303 was designed to accompany, so they have very similar aesthetics as you can see from the interface. Now I'm going to choose Lo-Fi Pop because it has a really nice punchy kick. And select an empty preset, open the sequencer, and I'm gonna insert a simple 4 on the floor beats. If I hold down Shift and turn on a step, I can insert a weak beat, which is like reducing the velocity. Let's also add closed hi-hat. I'm just going to drag my mouse and create a row. Let's add some accent. Turn up the accent knob. Now, just like TB-303, TR-606 comes with these knobs and controls up here that can really push and transform the sounds. Let me demonstrate this with the bass drum. Turning up the gain, and also turning up the decay. You can see how powerful it can be. But for this demo, I want the kick to be much less powerful because I don't want it to get in the way of TB-303. So let's adjust them back. And for the tune, I'm gonna turn it all the way down to match the key of the bass. Let's also do the hi-hat. I'm gonna solo this. Shorten the decay and bring up the gain to make it sound more powerful and saturated. Sounds good. Now let's create some variations. I'm going to copy variation A, paste it to B and C. And for variation A, I'm only going to have the kick. For variation B, I'm going to have the hi-hat and the kick. And for variation C, I'm going to add a few more sounds. Now I want to have TB-303 playing in the back, so I'm making sure that position lock to DAW is on and also the current button is activated. So I'm playing variation C and let's start adding more sounds. Starting with a cymbal. Let's also add toms. Now I'm going to move these variations to Logic, but this time let's try converting them into audio regions. Click Option, make sure that drag and drop pattern as audio is selected, turn off position lock to DAW, and drag pattern A into the empty area in Logic. And now we have it as an audio region. Repeat this for the variation 1 of TB-303, and let's go to pattern B. And finally copy pattern C to accompany variation 3. And I can now turn off TR-606. Let's have a listen. To add more vintage feel, I'm going to add this vinyl noise. It is really loud, so I'm going to turn it down a lot. Now from here, let's add more drums using TR-808. So here's a new track. And first of all, let's clear the preset. Open the sequencer. Let's turn down the TB-303 a little bit. And let's start with the hi-hat. Turn up the volume. Rim shot. Add accent. And clap. I think it sounds quite good at the end of the bar. And we can make rhythm variations like this. Let's turn it down a little. Maybe cymbal at the start. And cowbell. And let's not forget to turn up the accent knob. Now I'm going to export this pattern as MIDI into Logic. So make sure drag and drop pattern as MIDI is selected. And I'm going to deselect position lock to DAW. Drag variation A into Logic. Now I'm going to come back to TR-606 because I forgot to create a variation that is only hi-hat, and I'm going to do that now by copying variation B and pasting it to variation D. Let's erase the kick and export variation D as an audio region. And with all these parts, I wanted to expand this into a little bit more like a mini track and into an arrangement. Let's start with moving this TR-808 here to introduce it with the variation 2 of TB-303. Repeat the region by pressing Command R. And let's take a look at the MIDI. I want to gradually introduce the sounds, so let's erase some sounds, starting with the clap. I'm going to try muting the hi-hat. And for the cymbal, let's just keep the first one. Now at the end of this bar, I also want to create a variation for the clap. And let's increase the velocity at the end, so it will be like a fill to the next section. Now starting bar 13, let's create a little breakdown by bringing variation 3 of TB-303 and extending variation 2 to fill the gap. Repeat the hi-hat only pattern from TR-606 here. And keep the same TR-808 patterns going. This would be a good section to play with the rhythm of the clap. Let's adjust the velocity. And I'm going to simply copy this section of TB-303 and TR-808 into the next section and couple it with variation C of TR-606, which has the most sounds. Now I also want to add some reverb to the drums. So I'm going to send TR-808 to the same reverb using bus 1. And let's also do the same to TR-606. Now, as the final step, I am back to TB-303, and what I want to do is record parameter automation to make the bassline more evolving, which is a very important aspect of the acid bassline. I'm going to switch to touch mode so I can record my hand movements of these knobs. Let's start with the cutoff frequency knob. I'm going to tidy up some automation points. I'm just doing the minimum. And here's the automation points I recorded for resonance. I'm just tidying up the points to keep the value high mostly. Let's record VCF trem next. Interesting shape I made there. I'm just going to leave it as is, and let's move on to the accent knob. Tidy up these points. Let's not forget to put this back to read. And I wanted to increase the drive and the chorus just a little bit. For the breakdown section, I think it would be cool to increase the amount of send effects. So let's close TB-303, and I'm going to increase the level of the send effects in touch mode. Let's tidy up these points. And finally, let's listen to the whole thing. So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it and thank you for watching.